Today's video will demonstrate how to perform a top-down design process. Hello, I'm James Helfrich. We often hear about top-down and bottom-up design, and how does this even work? Well, this video will demonstrate this process in a semi-real-world example. We're going to demonstrate this by designing the game of chess. We'll demonstrate this method with a problem. In this case, we will design a program to play the game of chess. Specifically, we'll allow two players to engage in a game of chess. We're not going to have the player play the computer. So we're going to start by naming a component, and then we will identify the interfaces into and out of the component. And then we'll describe the component using some drafting mechanism, probably pseudocode or a flowchart. And then we'll identify the subcomponents that this thing relies upon. And then, is there more? If the answer is there's no more subcomponents, then we're finished. But if there are more subcomponents, then we're going to go back and loop again. So let's see how this works. First step is to name the component. Well, we want this to play the game of chess. Now, what's the name of the function that we start with? Well, in most programming languages, we'll call that main, and that's the name. Next, we'll identify the interfaces. Well, then nothing goes into or out of main, so we do nothing there. Next, we'll describe the component, and we'll use pseudocode for this. And we're going to say main is going to first read the file, play the game, and then write the file. Notice how if I'm going to describe a complex subroutine that I'm just going to use an English description, I'm not going to bother with pseudocode because at this point, I don't even know the name of those components. Now we'll identify the subcomponents, and main's going to have three of them: read the file, play the game, and write the file. Now note, at this point in time, I don't know anything about those functions. I don't know their interfaces. I don't know their name. I don't know anything. Next, we'll go to the next step. And this time we'll look at the read the file part. We'll name the component, read the file. Well, I don't need the word the, and file doesn't really describe what I'm reading. So I need to have a really good function name. It's going to start with a verb and it's going to do something. So I'm going to think, how am I going to read the board? So I'm going to call it read board. Now I'm going to identify the interfaces, what goes into and what comes out of read board. Well, nothing goes into read board, but read board is going to give us a board that we read, and that's going to come out. Now we'll describe the component. And once again, I'll use pseudocode for this. So I'm going to get the file name, and then I'm going to open the file, and then I'm going to read the collection of moves from the file, and then I'm going to play the moves onto the board, and then I'm going to return the board. Now, some of these things are regular programming constructs like open a file and read a file, and some are not, like get the file name and play the board. I'm going to have to write those myself. So next I will identify the subcomponents, and let's see here, what is English like? Get the file name, that's one, and play the moves, that's another one. All right, the next step we'll work on the get file name. So what's the name of the component? Well, we want to start with a verb name, of course, so get. And get what? Well, file name, so we'll get rid of the article. I think we're good to go. That completely describes what it does. We'll identify the interfaces. Well, nothing goes into, but something definitely comes out of, and that's the file name of our file name. Describe the component. Once again, I'll use pseudocode, and I'm just going to prompt for the file name, get the file name, and return it. This is so trivial. I'm not even sure why I created the pseudocode. Identify the subcomponents. Well, there's none. All right, let's pick a new method. Play the moves. Let's see here. Name the component. Well, I want to play or execute a collection of moves. So I could call execute moves or just play moves. Play moves, plural, there's more than one. I like that. So play moves. Identify the interfaces. What's going to go into it? Well, this collection of moves, and what's going to go out? A board. So I'm going to say moves goes in and a board comes out. And we'll describe the component. Once again, we'll use pseudocode, and we're going to create a default board and go for every move in my collection of moves, and we're going to play one move. And when I'm finished, I'll return my board. So let's see here. What is not? The for move and moves, that's pseudocode. Return board, that's pseudocode. But what's not? Well, my create a default board is set default board is definitely not pseudocode, so I need to figure that one out. And also play one move. I'll have to write a method for that. The next thing I'm going to do is play one move. So I'm going to name the component. Let's see here. I have play, because I'm going to do the same thing I did before, use the same verb. I definitely want to maximize the reuse of verbs so the relationship between related functions is clear. And well, there's just one move. So I'm just going to use the singular version, and I'm going to call it play move. I think that's good enough. Identify the interfaces. Well, I'm going to have a board that exists, and then a move, and then I'm going to update the board. So a board and a move go in, and a board comes out. Describe the component. Once again, I will use pseudocode, and I'm going to get the source and destination of the piece, where it goes from and where it goes to. But also, chess has a bunch of special moves. For an example, I could just do a normal move, or I can castle, I can do an en passant, or I can promotion. And each one of these is going to require some extra code that I don't want to deal with right now. So I'm going to have another function do that for me. So identify the sum components, and the main ones are move normal, move capture, move castle, and move promotion. I probably also should have a get source for move and get destination for move. That may or may not turn out to be non-trivial, but I'll worry about that later. Okay, the next one I'm going to do is play a game. The next component is to play the game. So I'm going to start with the name, the component, and let's see here. I have read board, which has already been figured out. Play board, interact, but it's not really, you don't play the board, you kind of play the game. I think I'm going to call it play game. So I think that's descriptive. Identify the interfaces, what goes into play game. Well, a board does, and what goes out, well, also a board. But since I'm changing the same variable, I'm going to use a double-ended arrow. I'm going to describe the component. Let's see here. I'm going to use pseudocode, and notice how my parameter comes in. I'm going to start with an event control loop with a sentinel done. While not done, I'm going to prompt the user for a move, and I don't really know how that's going to happen right now. It's going to be a click. So they're going to ask them, I don't know. And I'm going to say if move equals quit, then I'm done. Otherwise, I can't just play any move. I better validate the move, and if it's valid, then I'll play it. Identify the subcomponents. Let's see here. Prompt for move. I haven't figured that one out yet. Is valid move. I have not figured that one out yet. But notice how I already have play move figured out. I'm going to reuse that same function. So here my pseudocode is going to be much more specific. I'm actually going to use the actual function name. And of course, I can continue this process for the rest of the functions as well if I choose, but you get the general idea. This is details from the top-down chapter of the software design textbook.